found one decent creek crossing where they're coming out of that saddle on that high ridge and coming over to the other ridge. There's one ridge, finger ridge, between me and the one I really want to scout. Son's going to go up there about 100 yards. There's another swag and a saddle, and he's going to check, see if there's a creek crossing on it. And we're going to follow these two back, see if they meet at the same place on this point. That's our game plan. You can tell that a decent buck has hit this tree right here, rubbed on it. We still ain't got into the heart of where this buck is at, but I'm starting to think we may be getting on the outskirts of seeing this rub. I want you to hit that little knob out there on that end. I'm going to hit this knob on this end. We'll see if there's bedding on it, because I just seen a big rub behind me, and coming down here there's another good rub right here. They're old rubs, but I want to see if there's any beds on the ends of these knobs, because in my opinion, I honestly don't think this buck's bedding here. It's not his primary bed area. I think over yonder where I'm fixing to take you is his primary, but I also want to see if he's bedding here possibly early season when these acorns are in full swing, because this could be a really, really good spot to catch him early season. It's hard as crap to get to though, man. I don't know if I got enough, I honestly don't know if I got enough energy to get back here too. We'll see. Maybe I can find better access. I know the way we came in ain't gonna work. Not for me anyway. I'm too old for this crap. We got a good buck rub right here. There's some other little trees whooped. You think it's doe bedding? Yep. Look at the beds. Is it, how close are the beds and how big are they?
One bed, two beds.
So they're right next to each other. Is there anything behind them?
The what?
Is there anything behind the beds? Any thick brush, blow down?
It's pretty open. It's just a flat spot right
It's just a flat spot on the ridge. Is there any other beds on it?
Not that I can
See,
see.
your ridge is most likely going to have the beds on it, because if you look, it's steeper. I'm lower than you are, a lot lower than you are. There ain't going to be no beds on my point. But a deer can jump off both sides of where you're at and escape, because it's two deep ravines on both sides of you. That's how big the bed is? Good Lord, that's a big bed.
It's just at my shoulders.
Well, you're holding your hands out way past your shoulders. That could be a buck. Is there any droppings in the bed? Any hair in the bed?
I mean, I think it's too old to find hair.
It's just an old bed.
It's not been used in a while.
I'll come up there and look at it in a second. I'm going to check this knob real quick. Okay, the ridge I'm on, son, the ridge I'm looking at is a long tapering ridge. So any deer that's bedded up there is going to swing around that swag, hit this ridge, and take this ridge all the way to the bottom. Because it's more of like a long tapering ridge dropping off into that hardwoods. This is a travel ridge over here. That's why you see the rub line on this ridge. I'm coming over there. There any more beds over there?
Not that I can tell.
Well, these are the only beds, and they're right on the edge of this drop off. I don't think, I'm like you, I don't think it's buck bedding, because if you look at this side doesn't have a really good escape route. It's probably doe bedding, and the bucks are coming down. They're probably coming around the head of that, because this bow right here a lot of times will create a draft going uphill. It'll suck that air uphill, and if a buck, that's why that trail's up there. Think about it, if a buck's coming down that ridge, he's on that rub line trail right there, and he hits that bow, if there's does down here, he's still 100 yards away from them, he can smell them. And if they're not here, he can venture right on down that ridge, and that finger ridge right there, is leading right over there to where that big buck was bedding. So I think you're right. I think it's doe bedding right here.
Yeah, they're not big enough to be bucks.
I keep forgetting to say all that on video. Anyway, okay, here's our game plan. We know for a fact that 231 yards from here is where my buck bedded down. I watched him bed over there. He got up 10 o'clock, he moved through that saddle and went to this other ridge. I don't know if he bedded down or not, or if he continued following this ridge on down to where this other ridge is going to, and they meet and can intersect down there. If so, there'll be a major creek crossing down there where they cross to go over to that other bed area where I found the biggest buck several years back. You know, that one giant that I was chasing. He was bedding on that high ridge. Of course, he got killed, but that would make sense. So you're gonna go down there or go up this saddle? I'm going up this saddle because that's where I know where he's bedding on this side. I'm gonna follow him back to that ridge.
I'm gonna check this spot right out here and I'll walk up that finger.
You're gonna come backwards? Okay, well we'll see if we meet then. All right. I tell you, doing this kind of scouting, working a really big area like this, trying to get the big picture, it's nice having 2, 3, 4 people even, so that you can spread out and work a big area like this in a lot shorter time, because one man beating all this down is an all-day deal. I'm 59 years old and I ain't young like I used to be. Working these hills and hollers, up these steep bluffs, puts a whooping on an old man like me. I say I'm old, but I ain't giving up. They gonna have to, when they bury me, I'm gonna be fighting to the day I die. Okay. What I've got here is a real high ridge. The top of this high ridge is flat. There's a finger that points out this way. There's a finger that points out that way. On the other side of that's another finger that points out that way. There's a swag saddle right there, which that buck crossed over, and there's another finger over there. If you were to imagine the top of this ridge being your hand, and you just spread your fingers out as far as you could, the top of that ridge, all them fingers meet at the top where the palm of your hand is. And you got all these fingers that join out from the top. That's what this buck area is looking like, where he wants to hang out. I can't blame him because he's got so many options to where he can bed on different wind base. All these hollers, once you get past this, I'm following his trail right now back up, hopefully to where he laid down when I jumped him that day. And this is, I believe, the trail he used coming down. He crossed that swag, went over, this trail splits. Anyway, that's why he's here. You got very thick, diverse habitat. You got a deep hardwood holler that pretty much surrounds this whole area. He can just drop off any direction he wants to and feed on acorns early season. You got browse for late season in here. Top of this hill's got honeysuckle greenbrier on it. It's just, these woods ain't super thick, but they're thicker than anywhere else around here. It's the thickest available habitat. So this is why he's here. I'm not gonna walk over there, but right there around all these vines, it's blow down. There's one bed right there. I don't know if you can see it. I'm not gonna mess with this bed, but that's one big bed right there. You can tell it's been matted down. So this one finger's got a bed on it. Let's see if the other one's got one. There's another good rub. Closer you get to the palm, top of this ridge, you'll start seeing more rub scrapes, a little more buck activity. Alright, there's a little trail coming around the side of this bench. A lot of deer droppings on it. Still, this is the far right finger. I'm going to call it the far right finger because I know what I'm talking about. I know y'all won't, but I've already checked out the number 2 finger had a bed on it. I'm not sure if there's going to be a bed here on this finger or not. It's not looking like they will be, but they definitely, maybe he's walking up and down this finger, because this is the finger I jumped him on. He was coming up out of that big holler, and coming over here to this finger, it looks more like if I were a big buck, I'd walk it, because it looks like easier walking coming around that long finger. So he probably came up out of that bottom, worked his way up around this finger. He got right over there in that edge, and I jumped him. He ran back this way, and right over there on that second finger, I don't know if you can see, there's a little bitty swag here between here and that another finger, and there's a bed on it. So he may have went over there and bedded down. That's what I'm thinking he did. And then he got up from there, and he walked over here to this other finger at 10 o'clock. I watched him get up, and I think he bedded back down. He was trying to get downwind of me, but the saddle sucked my scent down in that saddle and prevented him from smelling me. So when he come across that saddle, he actually come down this finger ridge and bedded. Probably, I don't know. You say there's a bed down here, and that makes sense that he would do that, because that's once he went over that hump right there, I couldn't see him no more. And that means instead of going around the side of that ridge, he simply dropped straight down to this bed over here. That makes sense. Okay, so you got these rocks behind his back. He's got an old bed here, and to his back he's just got a couple of rocks. You got a rub there. That ain't a real big giant rub.
None of those rubs down the bottom are fresh.
That's a
Rub bed 1, bed 2.
bigger rub there, a bigger bed there. These ain't fresh beds.
Nope.
Did you look right there on the very end right there? There's no bed right there?
I didn't look dead on it.
Right dead on the end by that other side of that big stump where it flattens. See if there's a bed laying right there. Because you got steep sides on both sides. Left and right, it's very steep. He could drop off. He could see a long ways from there. This could be definitely a potential primary buck bed. Look left and right there real careful. See if you see a bed down there. Now let's go back up and hit this other finger ridge. We got to cut across, hit that big ridge where I know, well, I say I know he's bedding there. That other big buck was bedding over there, so it should be a good bed area. See if he's working it. We're gonna have to get out of here before too long. He's still walking this some. You can see these tracks ain't. Yeah, they're not
droppings in that swag between the 2 ridges, but it's not a fresh bed.
We'll follow these hoof marks going up this ridge to this other point. Should be a bed up there, I hope. That'll make it easier for me to hunt him if it is. He ain't gonna make it easy on me. Well, what you just said is dead on true. That is a rut bed. And that's exactly why he's laying there. He can lay there and he can see and hear and smell all the other deer in the area that are traveling through. I'm glad you picked up on that. That is starting to catch on to this stuff, ain't you?
There's bed next to the travel corridor, that's why they did there.
Yeah. Makes sense, don't it? This is a good trail. I mean, a lot of punch marks going up and down this hill going to that finger. It's gonna go right back up there to where my tree stand was at. I think this is gonna be the trail that goes under my stand. What do you say?
If you hadn't scared him out of there, you'd probably kill him.
It's all my fault. You're probably right. I gotta quit scaring them.
Old drops.
Yeah, well, it's old droppings, but this is that main path that comes over this. We're right here on top now. Look and see what you see. Tell me what you see from here as far as terrain features go. Imagine, well, see if you could pick up on it first.
The bottom we hunt's over there. Big bottom's over there. I mean, this whole property is just
Surrounded by a big bottom.
surrounded by big bottom and multiple finger ridges. So
Multiple finger ridges. How many finger ridges do you count?
1, 2. You go down there, there's 2 more, 3, 4. And this main one, 5, and then 6.
And then over there's what?
A dozen more that direction.
7. There's actually 7 finger ridges that come off of this flat top right here. This, we're sitting in a bow, semi bow right here. This saddle, not really a bow, it's a saddle. This saddle comes from that side, crosses over, and there's a saddle on this side. So these two saddles meet right here. This is where I always see all the deer activity. That tree is the tree I was in right up there. So typically these deer come off that finger ridge there where we normally hunt them from, or they come up this way, or they come across. They travel. This is main travel hub. I guess what you like, a wagon wheel spoke, and we're in the center of this travel. And this is a definite rut potential good spot. If we go off that finger ridge there ain't no sense in going over there. We already know what's over there. We go off this finger ridge here, drop off, go up that other ridge on the other side.
You'll be where you were sitting today.
That's where I saw the biggest buck down here of my life. And he was probably, well, the guy that killed it said he scored 166 and 3/8. So he ain't the biggest buck I've seen in my life. He's the biggest buck I ever seen down here. And right over there is where you saw your giant. Looked like he had 2x4s sticking out of his head. So that's why this area, or this spot's so good, is because of this hub. Now we just been hunting the outer edges of this thing. We hadn't really jumped down in the middle of it yet. So today's the day we jump in wide open. Let's go out here and see what's on the end of this finger ridge. A lot of these does, when they come through that saddle back there, they walk the trail you're walking right there. And they come down this finger ridge. So there's a lot of does use this ridge. And if you look, it's the most open ridge there is. I mean, you can see all the way to that ridge to the left and all the way to that bottom. Really, you can see all the way to the creek from here. And out these little fingers that J-hook to the right and left. You got one going there and one going there. Probably gonna dive off straight in front of us. Be a straight down drop.
It will be. This is where that
Seems like all the does will run this more open ridge when I'm sitting over here watching these deer.
they like to walk it parallel. Like the bottom. When they get down here, they go left or right.
Well, usually they drop in that swag right there. When you that trail you was following drops off on that left side, and it goes right down there where we've been hunting.
Every doe I've ever seen in that bottom
They're always on this end, ain't they?
has always come up the rock ridge.
They walk the same trail the bucks walk? I've never seen a doe walk that trail.
They always, I've seen them come off that top, which I've only seen one. I've seen one doe come off the tall ridge and go down up the rock ridge. I've seen two does stay in the pines on the other side and just parallel it and never come over here, staying on that ridge over there. And I've seen does paralleling up here. I've only ever seen one doe cross, and it was that one individual that walked the same buck trail.
You know that where you saw your biggest buck, you were sitting on that opposite finger ridge that hooked to the left. He came from that gap.
He came from, if you're standing on the rock ridge, he came from the left, same way that spike
That
came.
gap. He came right out of that gap.
Yep.
Now when he crossed coming out on the other side of that gap, going back up toward the top, that's where I always see the does. I mean, they are all over the place on that side. Or they're over here, up here, working this ridge.
I'm usually in the bottom. I'm not usually up in the pines. The does usually stay up in the pines. I've only ever seen one doe cross the bottom.
So it's just the bucks that cross there.
Unless
I've never seen it. I've never seen a doe cross there.
Yeah, I've only seen one doe cross the bottom ever.
Okay. That's one more doe than I've seen.
But I've seen several does walking the edges of both sides.
Yeah, they do walk the edges heavy. And that's why the bucks cross there. They're doing a 90 degree across all them trails. That makes sense to you? But they're not going no further up that direction because there's too much human activity. Once you go there, up, too much human activity that direction. That's why they stay on this side. The bucks, not the does, the bucks. These bucks, they're gonna be hard to get to on this side.
Yeah, most of the bucks.
I don't know how I'm gonna get in here to hunt them without them knowing I'm here.
Every buck that I've seen come through here that have come from that side, come up the bottom, or come off of this, have ended up on the rock ridge.
Do you see what we're doing though? We're hunting that far outer edge of this whole area. I mean, you got to get at least to that spot before you start seeing these bucks. On this side and where we're at in the middle, if you could find a way to get in here amongst all these, you could kill some of these giants in here. Just got to get a lot earlier start in the mornings. You take a
long walk.
It takes you 2 hours to walk back here. Anyway, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Well, early season is a different story. Them bucks, you know that the gap ridge, the gap. There's a bed on the other side of that gap, right on that knob. Early season, there's a good buck a bed there, and then right on where you sat and you saw your giant, you hooked a left. If you go straight out, that little grass patch out there, there's a main bed right there early season. Big old buck. He'll bed there every year. And you got a bed on this side of the holler and that side of the holler. It's a tight jump from one side to the other. He can get two different wind directions, but he's bedding right there, right next to them acorns when they're falling. He stays right there early season. You could kill him early season if you can sneak in there without him knowing it. It's hard to get to him.
Can't get off work early season.
No, it's hard. These doe trails, they all split. One went left, one went right. There's like two little swags and finger ridges. I'm going to take the one to the right. He's going to take the one to the left. We're going to look for the creek crossing and see where all these deer cross. Going over to that next high ridge, which is where I believe the biggest buck in this area might be bedding. We'll find out. You got down in this bottom, or close to this bottom, probably 50 yards from it, you got a pretty good parallel trail going down this little ridge, rub line, all headed the same direction. You see anywhere where they cross that creek coming your way?
Crossing it, they're walking up it.
They're walking down it or up it?
Up it.
Up it?
Right there sticking up.
Yeah.
And that one's the trail's going in between the two of them. Over. Goes down into the creek bottom. Goes straight up. That's the trail the 6 Point walked that day.
We see when you get down in these wide open bottoms like this, down in the bottoms you got a rub, a historical rub there. You got a historical rub there. And if you look up on that hill, you see all them trees where he's whooped and rubbed. The bigger trees, they're all old rubs. But early season, a lot of people will look at this right here. They'll see all these rubs on these trees, because they'll be fresh early season. They'll see these rubs like here and on that tree there. You see where he's hit all these trees in here, going up this ridge out of this bottom. Now, this is really not the ridge I want to hit, although I know he uses that ridge. I've already scouted that ridge out real heavy. This one here, this big high ridge, that's the one I want to check out coming in from that side. You got this little hardwood drainage that runs up through here. This little drainage right here, if you look at the map, it don't really stick out like a sore thumb like the other hardwood drainages do. It's much harder to see because it's more narrow. And in the head of that thing, probably about 100 yards up through there, when this buck comes across this ridge over here, he drops down and he crosses right up yonder in the head of that thing. Well, it's not all the way up the top head, but right there where you see that terrain feature from here. And then he goes up that high ridge. And the last major bed area I seen was way, way up there. And it was in a spot where you would never think a buck would bed. I've yet to figure out why that stinking buck is bedding, or was bedding where he's bedding. It just don't make sense to me. So never say never on where a big buck will bed. That's rule number one I found out. Most people see this pretty stuff down in this bottom. They want to hunt it, don't you think?
Yeah, you kill deer in early season. Kill does and stuff come back and forth. The bucks, like I said, the deer I've seen that have come from this side have stayed up high and dropped off the high ridge towards me. They've stayed up.
That makes our area where we're hunting even better, don't it?
Mm-hmm.
Now that we've scouted this bottom side, we're seeing why that side's even better. Makes more sense now.
So far, the only thing I've seen, other than the obvious, that the deer that would stay on the ridges like the does, is what you're saying. The bucks could, if they dropped off into this over here, or if they stayed up here and came this way, they would never come that way. But any deer that's going from A to B, they're going to have to cross.
They're going to use that area where we hunt.
Yeah, that's the core.
But every deer, for whatever reason, every deer that's come through there that didn't cross through there has ended up this direction. They go this way. The ridge behind me, they always go up it. That big buck, he was go up and down that ridge, this ridge.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a lot of deer sign on that ridge.
No.
I mean, you can't hardly find a trail on it, but that's the ridge he uses. And over there is where he crosses. And over there behind you is where I found his bed. Why? I don't know. Just where he likes to bed. But he's dead, so we got to find another buck. And that other buck I saw, I think might be doing the same thing, because he came this way. Which made me think he might be bedding over here, using that other bed area. But who knows what's going through a buck's mind. One buck ain't like another buck. They all got their individual personalities, but usually if you got one big mature buck bedding in the area, he's bedding there for a reason. Whether you can figure out why he's bedding there or not is irrelevant. He's bedding there. There's probably going to be another big buck utilizing that same area later in life, because the area makes him bed there. I don't think a buck really picks where he wants to bed. I think human pressure, terrain features, the way the does travel, I think all that other stuff that we don't really think about much forces him or makes him want to bed in an area like that. Make sense? Mm-hmm. That's my line of thought anyway. Alright. We got one or two choices. We can go up that little draw and find where he walks across and come in the back door. if he's up there, he's got the wind in his favor, and then we can go out the other side and go back to the truck. We gotta.
10:45 now.
We're running out of time.
We got about an hour and a half.
Let's go. One thing I do see right here is a bunch of turkey scratching all over the ground where they, I guess, digging up, still trying to find an acorn worth being at. Turkey scratchings all the way up and down through here. So you turkey hunters need to come right here. If you need a waypoint or anything like that, hey, don't call here. Just kidding. See this, them trails is below us because this bow, it gets real steep right here. We're going to have to climb up that. But he bedded just on the other side, or if he's still there. Well, there's a third trail paralleling up higher. I might take a breath. Okay, you got, Matthew, you got 3 trails paralleling this ridge. You got trails paralleling that ridge over there. They're going up and down. That one trail cutting across at a 90, where you saw the fresh buck rub, that's the buck trail. He's gonna cut as many trails as he can on that side. He's coming up this. He's already cut 3 trails on this side, and we ain't got to the top yet. So that makes sense. I'll meet you at the top. This I got some bigger droppings over here. This is the 4th trail, hugging the very bottom side of this steep bench. See, you got this real steep bench. Up there it starts to flatten out a little bit, don't it?
Yeah.
That's about, what, 30 yards to the top of that?
About fresh droppings right here. No, not that fresh. Just droppings right here.
So you're going to have a trail up there on top of this bench. You're going to have a trail at the bottom of this bench. This is a pretty good little cut trail here. This would be a buck trail in my opinion, because it's such a steep cut. That could be does. He's cutting right up this gap. This could be a backwards escape route I'm following. Looks like a bunch of them are going downhill. I'm starting to get tired. All them trails come up. You see how open it is on top of this stupid thing? It's so hard to get to. But then when you get on the top, it kind of opens up. It just don't make a lot of sense to me. I'll see if I can remember where that buck was. It's been I think he's straight in front of you to the left where the bed was. We'll walk this out. I'm gonna hook around to the right and check that little knob. Just to your right, I'll swing back around. You check that little knob out good. He was bedding right here. That biggest buck, he was bedding right over here to my left, which don't make any sense at all. But he can see that little hogback ridge down there. That little ridge in the bottom, and he can see all the way back up that big bowl behind him. He can see the top of this ridge. I don't know why he was bedding there, but there ain't no beds there now. So,
Are you going that way or this way?
To the right. I'm gonna see them boulders out there. I'm gonna check the very end right there. I don't think there's a bed out there. You're probably gonna. Let's just stay on your side. If there's a bed gonna be anywhere, it's gonna be on your side. But I don't see anything indicating that he's bedding out here right now. I mean, I see a lot of punch marks. You got some old rubs, but there's not a giant working this side. He's over there where we were, the biggest buck in this area right now. We done walked past the best sign and seen the best bucks beds. There was, years ago, there was a bed right there on them rocks. And there might be another one over there now. See how it's got two ditches on both sides. It's the high hump. He could see everything from over there. And the wind be in his favor. Plenty of escape route. The only problem with that is his escape routes is into wide open timber. And I don't think that's a good idea for a buck.
What's all this wide open timber now?
His best escape route would be back to the right. Because if he goes that way, he's just going to be in wide open timber. It's not going to be good for him. But of course, in his defense, he got a lot of deer droppings around here. Old and fresh. A lot of deer using this. In his defense though,
Travel ridge.
I say it's too open, but nobody hunts back here. I mean, I've not seen, have you seen one indication of a single person being back here?
No.
Neither have I. Not too many people are going to take that route we took getting in here. They're just not going to do it. Heck, I probably ain't going to do it. They're going to have to be more deer sign than this for me to come in on this side. I can't do this.
I haven't seen anything that I would indicate is better than what we're currently already hunting.
Yeah, and we're using the best access to get to it already. But we already know what's that way. We're not going to go back that direction. We're going to make a loop around. I'm going to show you a little different area, and you're going to like it.
Okay.
There's going to be a lot more deer sign over there. Probably this late in the season, there'll be a lot more deer over there. Come on, let's take a loop back to the truck. What about it?
Just the trails and the rubs and the dropping. Everything was super, super fresh. There's more deer sign in this area. That bottom that we hunt in, it's still good. It doesn't have any buck rubs in it this year.
How long ago was it when we first started hunting out here?
5 or 6 years ago.
It's been longer than that.
I think I was still in college.
So how long do you think that's been?
I've been teaching for 7 years, so maybe 8 or 9.
Closer to 9 or 10 years ago, ain't it?
Yep.
These woods are 9 or 10 years older and are getting more open.
I know.
Used to, you couldn't get a tree stand in hardly any of these trees
But
back
they don't
then.
just disappear.
They'll relocate. They're not going to disappear, no.
That's the thing. What did all these deer relocate? Big herd. They're still here. Moving through here.
They're going to be in the thicker areas, up closer to the front side of this property, and
Well, they've always hung close to the clear cut.
yeah, we already know that. That's why we're not scouting over there. We're scouting something new. You see that bowl right there? They're going to be a deer trail, right? That same trail, that creek crossing trail
That's a fresh rub.
that you,
Fresh rub.
okay, where's fresh rub?
It's big on that.
That is fresh rub.
Freshest I've seen today.
It's fresher anyway, still got okay. That might make me rethink a little bit. You think, let's see if there's a rub line behind us. I don't want to go that way, I want to go this way. Because I know I'm going to show you something up here.
It may not be as fresh you think. That's a dead tree.
Yeah, it's not fresh. He killed that tree. I don't remember bringing you here before, but that hillside, that whole hillside's kind of open, but you got that ditch right there. And that's about a 2-foot drop ditch in elevation. And all them deer would run down this ditch. And they would come right here. You got a bowl on that side and a bowl on that side. And a high ridge over there, it's wide open timber. They would shoot across this and it gets thicker over on the other side. This used to be a really good pinch point. And you say you got a rub there, a little rub. That don't count. How do you know it wasn't a Boone and Crockett buck just trying to tease you?
He might have sneezed on it.
You can still see where this trail.
It's old rub.
It's not as defined as it will be in the rut. There's an old rub there. Clear that out, make it easy for you to walk here. It's still a good trail. They walk just off the edge of that hump there and hug this edge. You could tell this is like a major runway at one time, cutting between all this stuff. You got a lot of rubs, old historical rubs. During the rut, you should be able to hunt this right here and kill a buck. There might be one bed on the end of this knob. That'd be nice. If it is, that'd cut your walk time in half, wouldn't it? Let's see if there's a buck bed right here. This is thick enough for a buck bed. It's just too dang open. I don't like it being this open. Did you say uh-oh?
Human sign.
Human activity. So there has been a human back here. That is proof positive. Of course, we're about an hour closer to the truck too.
Better not be an hour. Mama's gonna be mad.
These let's go to the truck. I think we found what we wanted to find. I think
We'll walk this ridge back to the bottom.
them two other access roads, we can use either one of those access roads. Yeah, we're gonna go to the bottom, walk back out, but all these finger ridges are gonna lead to that same bottom. The two access areas that we come in now, actually it's three, because I could, you know, coming in from the way I told you to come in, that makes three accesses, but there's three accesses to this area. So we're going to use those three accesses. We just have to get an earlier start getting in here and try to beat these deer back to this bed area. Yeah, I'll just have to start at 3 o'clock in the morning and get out here. You can still see rubs, a rub line on this ridge, old rubs. The thing is, when they, like you said, when they come through here, it's from point A to point B, and they're gonna be ripping with one purpose in mind, that's to get through here. But there's a lot of rubs. A lot of this is probably nighttime because it's so open. But it being close to the edge here, I could picture a buck maybe hanging out right here, like a, because you got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 behind me. 5 or 6 rubs in here. There's 7 down there. I'm gonna fall and break my neck on these rocks. This could be a stage area. It's a little bit, this is the thickest ridge we've seen. This could be actually a stage area before they drop off into that bottom at dark. It ain't a big buck. At least I don't think it is. It's definitely, boy, a buck could stand right here, and if there was a deer within 200 yards of it, he'd know it, wouldn't he? Because everything around this one little finger ridge, this finger ridge is thick, everything else wide open. So this is going to be your very last light at best setup right here. Very last light. That makes sense. But I bet you anything it's dark before he gets here, because he's got to travel too far down that ridge. That's what, 300-400 yard travel one way. If they don't get a lot of hunting pressure out here, he might go 300 yards before it gets pitch dark. For the guys that like pretty woods, this is definitely pretty woods here. Got this pretty creek running up this big giant hardwood bottom. Got all these big rock bluffs. If nothing else, you could sit in here and just enjoy life, kick back and relax. This kind of reminds you of some of the places we went backpacking, don't it? If David was down here, he'd be want to look at all these caves and holes and see what kind of critters is living in them. Man, this is God's country back in here.